Are you watching this video just the night before exam, or are you the student who has a few months lying ahead for the preparation of the exam? No matter which type of student you are, this video is going to benefit both of you. Okay, in this video I am going to solve or help you solve specimen paper that was released by Cambridge. So in reading we have two sections. In this video I am going to cover section A. So in text A there are two characters, Maw and Mawwood. Maw and Marwood have finally found Nameless. They had been looking for this large redwood tree that no one had ever attempted to climb before. Redwood trees can live for more than 2,000 years and are the world's tallest living trees. Maw and Marwood stood at the base of Nameless, peering upwards into its crown. The structure of any redwood trees is the opposite of most trees, whose branches get smaller towards the top. Nameless, this ancient giant of the forest, grew increasingly complicated and more massive higher off. So the tree was about 100 meters tall with a diameter about 3 meters near its base. The trunk was an enormous cylinder of soft, crumbly bark. For far above the ground, a few small wispy branches popped out of the trunk, but there were no branches on its lower reaches. Higher up still, a tangle of limbs emerged and wandered out of sight, buried in clouds of foliage. Maw and Marwood could not see its top. Marwood recalled that in ideal conditions, a redwood can grow from a seed into a tree that's an astonishing 16 meters tall in just its first 20 years of life, increasing in height by nearly a meter annually. After that, it grows faster still, adding mass. At an accelerating rate, it can exceed 75 centimeters in diameter at chest height in fewer than 60 years. The growth of redwoods generally slows down after the first 100 years, though by the age of 800, they may have reached a height they may have reached a height as tall as a 30-story building. Redwoods are shade tolerant. They can survive in dark places at the bottom of a forest, in the deep shade of their elders, where few other trees would survive. A small redwood living in deep shade hardly grows at all, but does not die. It goes into a kind of suspended animation if it is hit by light. It once again grows with relentless speed. Nameless had clearly basked in light. It was huge. "You're not going to try to climb it, are you?" asked Marwood incredulously. No answer. Mao looked again at the lowest branch of a smaller tree standing next to Nameless. Without warning, he leaped, grabbed, and swung himself up onto the branch in one fluid movement and began climbing upwards. "I really don't think that's very smart," Ma would want from below. 10 minutes later, Ma arrived at the top of the smaller tree. The tree had narrowed to a pole thinner than his wrist and began swaying under his weight, having got as high as he could. Mao looked across at Nameless and spotted a spray of slender branches on the covering wall of its monstrous trunk. A little branch stuck out directly in front of him. Mao wanted to grab that branch. He edged closer to it, and the smaller tree began to bend under his weight. There was a gap between the branch of the smaller tree and Nameless. From the ground, Mao had not noticed that gap, expecting that the little tree's branches touched the big tree's branches, providing a bridge to walk across. Mao studied the situation. If he could just reach out far enough, he might be able to grab that little branch on Nameless. Trying not to think about how high up he was, Mao focused his mind on the problem. The gap was really not very large, he thought. He would have to let go of the small redwood and make a leap up into the big tree and grasp a branch with his hands like a circus performer catching the bar of a swinging trapeze. He had to jump high or his body would not clear the branches of the smaller tree and he would get tangled and would fall. If I was standing on the ground and I had to make this jump, I could do it, he thought. So why not up here? He tried to force his hand to just let go of the tree. Just let go. I cannot watch, Marwood shouted furiously from below and closed his eyes. He dreaded hearing a scream followed by a meaty thud. In the top of the tree, Mao let go and jumped. He felt gravity go to zero. The world stopped. Mao watched the branch of a large redwood approach in slow motion and saw his fingers extend towards it. There was a jerk, and he found himself hanging from the branch by both hands, bouncing with his feet kicking the air. Swinging hand over hand, he got himself over to the trunk and climbed the next 3 precarious meters onto a stronger branch. He had arrived somewhere in the lower tiers of Nameless. Just below the crown of the huge tree, the branches here were bigger and closer together. There was foliage everywhere, above, below, and on all sides, layer upon layer of leaves, like tents within tents. The tree had not looked so big from the ground. Climbing upward slowly and steadily through the labyrinth, Mao lost sight of the ground. It felt as if he was passing through a membrane and entering another world. His senses were overwhelmed by an impression of life all around. Flaky, grey, green, and brownish plants in all manners of shapes hung from branches, drippy, frizzy, stringy, and hairy. He began picking pieces off, tucking them into his pocket. As he neared the upper surface of the redwood canopy, the lacework of branches glowed with varied shades of green, and he broke out into the sunlight. An hour after he had jumped into it, Mao arrived at the top of Nameless. "It's doable!" he shouted down. This was the text. Read the text A, named as Nameless, in the insert and answer question number 1 and question number 2. So this is section A that we are going to cover in this video. Okay, in question number 1 is about implicit and explicit meaning of the test. There are almost 8 questions, total 16 marks. Let's answer the questions. So here it is. Question number 1. In what way is the structure of redwood trees the opposite of most trees? Redwood trees' branches grow larger and more complicated higher up the tree, while most trees have branches that get smaller towards the top. Using your own words, explain what the text means by ancient giant of the forest. The text refers to the redwood as an extremely old and massive tree in the forest. Give 2 features of the enormous trunk of Nameless that would make it difficult to begin to climb this particular tree. So these 2 features you can add, that the bark is soft and crumbly, and it has no branches on its lower reaches. Give 2 details that show the relentless speed with which a redwood tree can grow according to the text. A redwood can grow from a seed to 16 meters tall in just 20 years. It can exceed 75 centimeters in diameter at chest height in fewer than 60 years. Next question. Explain what Mao is thinking when he looked again at the lowest branch of a smaller tree standing next to Nameless. Mao is considering using the smaller tree to climb and reach a point where he can jump to Nameless. How does Mao feel about trying to climb Nameless? Give 2 details from the text to support your answer. Mao feels determined and focused on trying to climb Nameless. He jumps on to the. Now you have also to give 2 two details from the text that you have just now read. Keep in your mind that you must fulfill all the requirements of the question statement, whatever the question it may be, and whatever the paper you are attempting in Cambridge. So he jumps onto the branch of the smaller tree without hesitation. He carefully studies the gap between the trees to plan his next move. Next question is, during his climb, Mao discovered a problem which he had not seen when he was on the ground. What was the problem? The branches of the smaller tree did not touch the branches of Nameless as he had expected. What did Mao decide to do to solve the problem? Mao decided to let go of the smaller tree and jump to grab the branches of Nameless. Next question. Explain using your own words Mao's different feelings about Mao climbing Nameless. Give three details from anywhere in the text to support your answer. Now, just like as you know that Marwood, who was looking towards Mao from below, standing on the ground, so he was actually nervous and worried, and he was surprised. Oh, Mao is going. What would happen? And there are also examples like Marwood is concerned and fearful about Mao climbing Nameless. He finds the idea incredulous, and he also expresses his doubts about the safety of the climb, and that's why he closes his eyes in fear during Mao's jump, dreading the possible outcome. So there are also examples in the text for this, like how he feels. So in the text, Mao leaps into the smaller tree. So here are some examples from the text what Marwood actually feels. So Marwood says, I really don't think that's very smart. I cannot watch, Marwood shouted furiously from below. So it's like becoming angry. And in the end, Marwood becomes pessimistic. I cannot watch, and closed his eyes. So this text you can give an example. Let's now move to question number 2. Question number 2 is about use of language and its effects. Here we have 5 questions for total 9 marks. So hopefully you have read the text carefully and you have deeply delved into the how artistically and beautifully the writer has used the language to create certain effects. So let's see the questions one by one. Read this extract from the text. He felt gravity go to zero. The word stopped. Mao watched the branch of the tree of a large redwood approach in slow motion and saw his fingers extend towards it. So here they have mentioned lines like it's from line 45 to line 46. So you can quickly jump to the text and you can go to these lines and see. So what does the writer want to suggest to us about the situation at this point in the story? The writer wants to suggest that this movement is very tense and critical as Mao is in midair and everything seems to slow down due to the intense focus and high stakes. Do not forget to use perfectly fine and suitable punctuation marks in your answers. So you can watch our other video on how to use punctuation marks correctly in your exam. Explain why the writer uses the word stronger rather than strong in expression, a stronger branch. The writer uses stronger to indicate that the branch Mao reached was comparatively more robust than the previous ones, emphasizing a relative increase in stability. What two impressions does the writer want to convey to the reader in the sentence, there was foliage everywhere, above, below, and on all sides, layer upon layer of leaves, like tents within tents? So the writer actually wants to give the expression and an impression of the density and abundance of the foliage, the complex and layered structure of the tree's canopy. So It gives an example like how the tents above tents are, in the same way the leaves are covering the other leaves. Read this sentence from the text. Climbing upwards slowly and steadily through the labyrinth, Mao lost sight of the ground. What effect does the writer suggest about the tree by using the word labyrinth to describe it? The writer suggests that the tree's branches and foliage form a complex, maze-like structure, which makes it easy to get lost and disoriented. The next question is, identify one example from the text below of how the writer uses language effectively to convey Mao's feeling after Mao has lost sight of the ground. It felt as if he was passing through a membrane and entering another world. His senses were overwhelmed by an impression of life all around. Flaky, grey-green, and brownish plants in all manners of shapes hung from branches, drippy, frizzy, stringy, and hairy. He began picking pieces off, tucking them into his pocket. As he neared the upper surface of the redwood canopy, the lacework of branches glowed with varied shades of green, and he broke into the sunlight. Explain the impression the writer creates in the example you have identified. Now, example, it felt as if he was passing through a membrane and entering another world. Let's explain. So you will also have to explain in your exam. So this example creates the impression that Mo is entering a new, almost magical realm within the tree, highlighting the profound change in his surroundings and the sensory overload he experiences. That's it. Thanks for watching. We have tried. You should also try. Maybe you find some other answers. It's not like 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Just read the text. If you find other answer, you can share in the comment section below. If you think any of these answer was wrong and you want to share with the audience the correct answer, feel free to add in the comment section below.